Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just repeating the sound while we're preparing the studio for broadcast tonight. Welcome to another edition of the Then and Now program. As usual, coming to you today, the 18th of February, 2020. Today, Tuesday. I welcome you all. Hello? Hello? All right, family. Again, a warm good evening to everybody. Today, the 18th of February, 2020, coming again on the Then and Now program. I'm your host and presenter, Prince Emil Kroma, wishing everybody a pleasant good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This is just another broadcast, and hopefully we will do them for probably an hour. I plan to go over an hour, honestly. So let we begin straight away by asking Fambulem for share the video. Please share. Let us share. Let's not be selfish. We're talking about issues of state and country. I want to talk about a few things today. So it's a collection of issues, probably 3, 4, 5. And for start with, honestly, I want to congratulate the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone, who happens to be head of state of the Republic, His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, and the Chief of Staff of the Sierra Leonean Armed Forces. I understand that today is Armed Forces Day in Sierra Leone, and I therefore want to use the occasion for commend once more the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, who doubles up as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, and the gallant men and women of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone on this special occasion of Armed Forces Day. Just briefly before I move on, I just want to give a short background behind the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone. And it's obvious that the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone is located, the headquarters is located in my town. There's a building, a beautiful building, I think within my background. Unfortunately, I searched for a more thorough and proper image for the HQ, the headquarters of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone, ISLAF. A very beautiful building, I believe, constructed by the Chinese back in the 80s. but this is the best that I could find. I hope we all take this as an obligation for take a thorough photo of this impressive building, now Cochrane, housing the headquarters of the Sierra Leone military, so that we'll be able to put on a Google, so we'll be able to download an iconic image of the headquarters of the Sierra Leonean Armed Forces. The Armed Forces basically was formed or came into being as we know them in its present state, although it don't go through one or two changes as an institution due to the war back in the 90s in which they organized. But we would like to put a date on the foundation of this important institution, the Armed Forces, which was founded in 1961, I believe. Of course, that was just about around independence. So if you put 1961 around that day, with transformation in which the country acquired independence, and therefore the formative stages of its institutions free from imperial colonial rule, will make sense that in 1961, the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone, as it will be known in an independent sense, was formed. The data what they get, I don't know whether this is accurate, need for double check, and you can help me, is as we speak, there is over 13,000 active personnel of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone. And in budget, as established back in, I believe that was 2012, 2015, did read a report, not sure now, but it was over 10 million US dollars, over 10 million US dollars, okay? And this particular, and also to the Chief of Staff of the Defense Force, I want to congratulate you, sir, along with the head of state on this occasion of the Armed Forces Day. It's really significant. So when the Armed Forces of the Republic was formed back in 1961, in principal responsibility, which he gave for abrogate, came 1990, when the war, the Civil War, took place, was basically the responsibility for the protection, the security of the territorial integrity of the Republic of Sierra Leone. A promise for defend the national interest of Sierra Leone within the framework of a particular obligation, international obligations. You know, say we sign up to many, many obligations as to how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. Okay, so internally, externally, there are obligations which we are entitled to. When I say entitled to, we supposed to observe the obligations then they. So the Sierra Leone military, a very powerful institution within the country, did attain or came into being in 1961. But then in 1990, or shortly before 1990, when it was it became battle-tested in 2 or 3 major activities, as we can recall, or 2 in particular. One of them could be the Congo War. I remember when I was a boy, when people were being deployed, Armed Forces personnel were being deployed. And I'm telling you this, Fambulem, the military was so respectable. I mean, if you see Soldier Man at home, which was very difficult to see, and if you go around, you know, here Moretown, when inside them barracks they are there, it's unbelievable. I hope those pictures, those photos of the time, I'll be able to find them, because as a small boy, there were occasional times, you know, when we went around those places, because even though those places were there, not all the time you were fortunate to go around there, because it was special. Trust me. The area was so clean. It was so protected. It was so responsible. It was so immaculate. It was so significant. The institution being so powerful that from a distance, you have to respect them. I mean, even at the gate where you fend Monday on guard, yeah, that place they outside team up alone and the entire surrounding. I mean, it's so magnificent that you're not just able to fend the courage for go further, because there was this eerie feeling about this place. And the soldier man with him up there, if you see how clean, if you see how disciplined, if you see how it team up, if you see in surrounding, if you see in uniform, in the bone, they call on the bone, the line where you don't iron, where you don't starch in uniform. I think the military police them, they be goodness me. Anyway, that was then. So we they talk about the now. So anyway, the country became tested, its military became tested in 2 wars. When I've been the Congo crisis, where they've been deployed the military, the highly political crisis, and then sent with military, the team way, as we understand from the history books now and declassify documents, we just go involved in war, which we should have fought the other way. Unfortunately, we went the wrong way. And then if we now remember the Dobousu military uprising, I mean, some kind of uprising, now the interior of the country, the army became very, very much involved in that crisis. Therefore, quell down an insurgency we've been developed now the hinterland. That was another test of the army, okay? But then in the late 1970s, 1980s, the army as an institution lost in rank and file or in position at the state as a neutral. We're supposed to fight only to protect the integrity, the security, and territorial borders of the country. It became politicized. The army, then in head at the time, the late Joseph Momo, may his soul rest in perfect peace, inside the House of Parliament, inside effectively the House of the People, the house where personified the people. The army not supposed for day inside it, but when the corruption begin, or some stage of the corruption, the man responsible for the army end up inside the house where decisions were being made. Usa army man not being no business. Gradually, the integrity of the army begin for erode. It erodes so much so that the army became like a ragtag army that when the civil uprisings started back in the early 1990s in March, okay, the army found dragging from different perspectives, from different interpretation, different representations for fracturing the army, where you break down into units, into bases representing X, Y, and Z with different interests. It became fractured. So it got drawn into it, and the army compromising integrity, as most of the soldiers end up for join the rebellion. That did not go down at all, you know, because in times as we found ourselves then, the army was responsible to protect the state, but because it has been, or it had been politicized, it found itself as a faction. They represent different interests, and the war will continue then. Anyway, that's a brief history of the armed forces of Sierra Leone, ladies and gentlemen. And we just do that simply because we want to recognize today as being the Armed Forces Day. And one final time, I want to use this platform for commend the Commander-in-Chief, the CIC of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone, RSLAF, and the Chief of Defense Staff, and the gallant men and women of this now impressive force, okay? Happy birthday to all the personnel of the Armed Forces of Sierra Leone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we definitely need for move on. And another thing I be want to talk, if you see the caption na the platform tonight, we talk about the polarization of we society. This get for do with something we don't happen for a while, okay? So there is no specific blame on one party, one institution, one individual, but rather across the nation over a period of time. This is why we use the keyword, the continuation. Thing happened recently, we draw back to this. There was an impressive array of foreigners just gone last week. Yes, okay. Today is what the 18th. On the 16th, specific, huge number of, okay? And when they entered the Republic of Sierra Leone, that became a talking point as usual, in which it almost appeared like a slang match between sides. One side, they try for claim victory, where another side, they try for rubbish the victory, where the other side, they try for claim. But the issue here is, Fambulem, are we not Sierra Leoneans together? Are we not supposed to be rising up together, fall down together, and rise up together? Even though we can have a political, but when it's going to be of some kind of benefit to the country, are we not supposed to be men and women of integrity, men or women who can rise up above the pettiness, be a mind or perform within a mature body to accept the reality of what is happening on the ground and take the credit, us all? Shouldn't we? I did draw a particular line to what happened recently in the form of the foreigner them we enter the country on the 16th. When this thing happened, there's been a lot of stories going on around as to what it was. Of course, you call interested parties on either side, negative reasons, positive reasons. Some of the parties, the interested parties, mischaracterize the occasion altogether for play it to their strength and success. Well, I not see anything significantly wrong with that, although it is somehow misleading for give people an impression it is not. Okay, so we're going to draw the common denominator at the end of this. But the other side was equally interested in diminishing whatever the other side was trying to say or raise, the prospect of a nation which is attracting others, especially which some difficult economic issues as at the moment. So kind of things that we're talking about. So let's get this. Let's get some perspective on what happened on Sunday. I mean, on the 16th of February. I believe that was a massive number of people and equipment, cars, motorbikes, and you name it. I think about 700 people. 700. That's a massive number of people. And that definitely will have, and in this case, it should have, and I believe it had, a positive impact on the country. But because of the polarization of the country that continues unabated, some of us have become confused right in the middle, because we now have to go and dig deep, go to the relevant sources to find out exactly what was this all about. So we find out, say, that there is an amateur, some people will call it an amateur car rally, where they take place, and they take place now for 13 years. The equivalent known as the Paris-Dakar rally, where you will get an equally massive and impressive number of people with cars, well-decorated cars, 4x4s, going through Europe and through the Sahara in Africa, passing through, meandering their way through deserts and mountains and the rest of it, ending up in Africa and picking up from Africa again back to where they started. Such a marathon of vehicles and people on the move in such an expanse area and difficult terrains to thread. But yes, it did happen. Gradually, we are not hearing about that anymore, and I don't think it's got a relevant or it's even not functioning. I'm talking about the Paris-Dakar rally because of security threats and etc. throughout. We're talking about another event, okay, which don't they go on for 13 years. It's called the Budapest to Bamako. Budapest is the capital city of a nation called Hungary, and Bamako is the capital, and that is in Eastern Europe. Whereas Bamako is the capital city of a country in West Africa called Mali. This race see 700 people, 700 participants going through all them 4 or 5 European countries, and then they ended up, after they come out through Europe, etc., come through Africa, through Bamako, and end up in Sierra Leone. Isn't this impressive, ladies and gentlemen, that you get 700 foreign nationals of all kinds, shape, stripe, form, and color end up in your capital after they know pass through so many other places in the world and end up in your capital. That drive-through day, 1, 2, 3 days, whatever, sure enough, bring hope to the people, or supposed to bring hope to the people. And I have no doubt that it did. And for that few moments, a lot of things were forgotten. Some of the difficulties were forgotten. There was a sense of hope. And these 9 are the things some people and try to capitalize on. And in capitalizing on this advantage, clear-cut advantage, some people try to paint the picture differently. Of course, we're not going to go into too much detail on that. Whereas at the same time, so other people, and we wish the government, and by default, the country, begin to talk something else completely different. The whole issue, which we all were supposed to celebrate as one big family, then became politicized as usual, and we lost the very essence of it. So, Fambula, this not exactly happened, okay? That over 700 people involved for the 13th year in a row, crisscrossing countries in Europe, the mountainous regions in Algeria, Morocco, and then ending up in the Sahara through Mali, and then come breeze through Freetown for a couple of days, where, at the time, they ended up we main bowl, we can call it the main bowl, one of Sierra Leone's iconic figure as well. We have a few iconic figures. Now they end up, they light up on that day for very, very good reasons. I mean, this is now one of the most powerful places that they talk about, the National Stadium. We now one of the most powerful iconic figure. We don't date around for 40 years, if not or more. I was there when it was being built. I saw it being constructed. So yeah, it's been around for 40 years. That's back in the 1980s. Clearly, it started in the late 70s and then finished up in the 80s. Watch many, many games, then they run around there myself, school and the rest of it. But that's many, many years ago. So this is where these people ended up. The rally, as we understand them, is not celebrated because of fastness, okay? Not to the vehicle, say because now 4x4s and then motorbike them. No, there is something else to this rally. And this is what we all must celebrate. Imagine covering a kilometer journey of over 8,000 kilometers. That's massive. And remember something, that the lenses, the attention of the entire world is watching or is trained on this group of people as they move from country to country. So for that moment, the eyes of the lenses or the lenses of cameras in the world, big news media were all trained on these people. So if they end up in a place, which means that the entire world camera and media is watching your country at the time. And you will think this is when people are supposed to rise up together in unity and celebrate, such an occasion. So we know, say, they covered the last 83 kilometer Budapest patrol day, Budapest to Bamako patrol, and they ended up at the National Stadium with the right in my background, the layer in my background, you can see. So for those of you who don't know or watching for the first time, the layer behind me or the photo behind me is that of the iconic National Stadium. It was christened when it was constructed then in the 1980s, named after Sierra Leone's president, the late Siaka Probin Stevens. May his soul equally rest in perfect peace. At some point, it became contentious, and I think it was under the military regime of the then captain, Valentine Strasser, to which the current president was also a member of that military government, which overthrew the APC government back then, decided that for national reflection, national unity, the name Siaka Stevens should be removed off the stadium, and the stadium must be renamed, or should be renamed, the National Stadium, which it is named officially today. Some people still decide to call it the the Siaka Stevens Stadium. Okay. So this rally again back quickly, I conclude soon because I think I don't make the point. And the point here is the rally, and that this we need to understand, because it took me a while for myself to understand, how social media can become, so polarized, so stalked, so saturated with news that you don't know which is which. If you understand, you don't know which is which. So that became a problem. So I had to dig deep into the archives, do some researching, and found out what the rally really represents, which is 700 participants. Then begin this journey from the Eastern European nation of Hungary back at the end of January, then travel through 4 European countries, all in the, 2 of them in the East, 2 of them in Western Europe. The 2 in the East are Hungary and Slovenia, and the 2 in the West are France and Spain. And then that journey brings them through 4 African countries. And then 4 African countries there, remember, Morocco, Senegal, Guinea, Conakry, Mauritania, 4, okay? And then the 5th one is where they ended the rally, which is Sierra Leone, which they finally entered into. It's a challenging journey, and the man where they behind this, now one Hungarian-born guy where they call Andrew Zabo. So at least now we understand, waiting this entire thing about, and it must have brought in some badly needed revenue cash into the country. So I hope this is clear, and this is going to be happening again. Now, if we did not know, now we know. So I want to come quickly to the final part of this program here tonight. One of the reasons why we organized the program here tonight, which is about the oath of office. We want to talk a little bit about the oath of office, and this is critical and this is key. Waiting at the oath of office, Famulem. What is the oath of office? Waiting the oath of office represent? Waiting it actually represent the oath of office. Okay. Sometimes we can be familiar with words. Okay. We don't hear them. We don't see them, we don't know how to spell them, but on most occasions, context, as we can always mention here, does matter. Context does really matters. So what we say here is, for understand where or usai we come from, or where we are coming from with the issue of oath, we first of all look for the dictionary meaning of oath, waiting an oath. In other words, what is oath, or what is an oath? Because it's a noun. So for speaking properly, I get for say that. What is an oath? Okay. What we then see from a dictionary definition, I think I'll look them up now, one of the dictionary there, or just wiki them. Of course, it does make a lot of sense. An oath is a solemn promise. An oath is a person's moral sense. Family, I want to take note, because this is where we will end at the very end of this broadcast. So we begin with the definition of an oath. What is an oath? A solemn promise. We can go on for locating solemn. Solemn. All of these are very key in actually defining piece by piece what an oath is. So it is a solemn promise. It's a sober promise. It's one of conscience. Okay. It's an act of invoking a divine witness. It's an act of invoking a divine witness. Is a moral sense. of right or wrong. And the way how very many people see them, because the people who respect, understand, appreciate, and look up to an oath as per its meaning, its definite meaning, is something where they guide person in behavior. So we ask the question, why do we swear an oath, especially for public servants, public officials, members of parliament, the presidents of countries, kings and queens, and the rest of it? Why do we swear oath, allegiance, if you like? Why do we? Having said this, Fambulem, okay, a few, yeah, let me respond to a few people, and please do not forgive me. Yes, brother Daniel Watson, Damo Watson. Good evening, my brother, and good evening to everybody else. Do you want to share this? Okay, please, 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 let's share this. There are loads of people. I see my beautiful sister-in-law, Lucy Derrick, is watching the program here tonight. Adama Mambu. It, however, started with the election in 1965 when Hinga Norman overthrew the then Governor General. Yes, Adama Mambu. Thank you very much. This is a date with history. That's very true. So this polarization, this conflict within the army started, and this overthrow that you just mentioned was along regional lines, if not tribal, because I hate for mention the word tribal. You therefore look at why Hinga Norman was part of this coup plot, or instead of coup plot then. Remember, you had others like Sori Ibrahim Fonas and the rest of them. People that were killed were hanged. They were tried and found guilty of treason and were killed. So this polarization will not begin long term. And this is exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm not putting a blame on and I said this, on a particular subject, on a particular individual, on a particular institution. The responsibility is ours all. Thank you very much for that contribution, Adama. Thank you so much. Yes, Timberlake, all the way in Germany. Welcome to the program. Where the music finish, interpret them for Weibo. Okay, thank you. I read this and make a touch on them quickly. Yeah, people continue to get amazed at the spectrum, the horizon, how wide it can be within this particular platform. So this is a particular music, it's a Fula music sung by a Fula guy called Sekuba Fatako. You know, before we end up where we are, we traverse this universe a little bit, America, Africa, and Europe. So especially the beginning of journey that goes back to Africa. So once upon a time, Fambulem, I was in Conakry, Guinea, and a big shout out to all my friends, very, very good friends that I made in Conakry, Guinea. I spent quite a time there, and there are fond memories of Guinea. And one of the things about Guinea then is the song that I played today, this evening, and somebody been requested, would you play with some Fula song? And of course, I know a few of them. So this one is called Lugata by a French musician, I think Fula, yeah, Sekuba Fatako. And Lugata is something that has to do with foreigners. And at the time, whilst we were sojourning during our crisis, I passed through Conakry, Guinea, spent quite a while there. And I used to spend time with my friends. I had many Fula friends. We used to hang out together, used to drink Tonton School and the rest of it. Not going to say very much beyond that. And one of the songs that I used to play most on all of the Fula hangouts that we went to and other places, it wasn't only Fula hangouts because it was such a brilliant song. You could hear it. And if only it can be remastered because it's a bit slow, you will realize the beauty. I don't remember all the words, I mean the interpretation, but I know very well that it had something to do with strangers, when strangers go somewhere. And I had a profound founding and attachment to the song because it was talking about strangers moving in somewhere, some of the things that they have to go through. So it had an emotional attachment to me then, even in the now. So thank you, T. Lake. And pretty soon, Fambulem, we get an extra session on this particular program where we go consigned strictly to music, African music, most likely Sierra Leonean music, a lot of it, but you therefore involve a lot of African music. And we will get a guy soon, we're going to conduct that on a particular day, particular time, every week, a month. I mean, there will be a day we are in talks about that, okay? So just want to say welcome to everybody. I'm not able to mention everybody in name, but just a few on top of my head. Edmonda, Elizabeth, Jonah, Kadiatu, Mariama, Kamara, Abedi Boateng. This is a usual name, a usual customer. Brother, how you doing? Welcome to the program. Josephine Bailey, Emma Cooper, Faya Bundy. Yeah, I remember the name. It's a unique name, Faya Bundy. And of course, Daniel Diamo Watson. And so forth and so on, but the program must go on. So we continue with the program. And where was I? We've been talk about the oath of office, the significance of the oath of office. Why do people swear an oath? What in oath get for do with people and sense, the moral sense of right or wrong? And how does it guide or act or control or shape people and behavior? How they get for behave towards waiting and take the oath towards. So we ask the question, why then do people take an oath? In this scenario, an oath of office. When you take an oath of office, it not mean say you not go do, you take an oath for do one thing and do another. Of course, you can do another because it get for be within the right frame of mind, the right thing to do then, because remember, it's one of conscience. Yes, I've been taking an oath saying, so I go do, but here are the prevailing circumstances. And if we get for look at philosophers, okay, such as, is it Jeremy Bentham? The principles of utilitarianism. That is about the greater good, because when you do something, it's hard for you to satisfy 100%, but the chances are you want to satisfy the greater majority. So what affects the greater majority in the sense of good will be what you intend to do or what you will do. So yes, you can take that oath day, because generally the reason why you take the oath, in fact, is for promote peace, stability, provision and security for everyone. Along the way, it doesn't work for everyone, and it's not going to work for everyone, because that's a tall order, but the greater good for the many and not the few. Unfortunately, Fambulem, we can see that we continue to live in a topsy-turvy world, in a topsy-turvy country or continent. This is an upside-down world. Which brings me back or make me think about George Orwell in novel back in 1984, some of his writings then. This guy was brilliant and came long before his time. Remember, if those of you who will have seen it, read it, it had a lot of us, a little bit confused at the time, but going into it deeply, and growing up and maturing, then we begin to understand exactly what George was talking about, because there was something driving George. Now we also understand what was driving George. Why was he doing these things? Why were he saying these things? Why was his writings, his literary writings as such, it had to be interpreted. To interpret it, you had to understand his mind. And George's mind, as we understand it now, and I like to put myself in that category, is about nation building. It's about cohesiveness. It's about the well-being of the people. That's from the perspective George Orwell was writing. So in 1984, when he said, right is wrong, war is peace, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery. Can you imagine that? How do you interpret that? Because everything seems to be upside down. But it had a greater meaning. But it's something like you have to raise yourself above some level so that you can get it. So we come back to the issue of oath. Not too long ago, Fambolem, we accused the All People's Congress of many things. Corruption, which is true. many other ills of society. I mean, that vibration went up, that calling, that act was revved up. Of course, power is looming. A change of guard to many was needed, and the call of duty was required. And politicians, as smart as they are, saw the opportunity and took on the opportunity. We started hearing mantras. Tolombo no go sidonya, angry boku. Remember that? New direction, which will imply at the time or in context, a turn away from the old direction. Anyway, having said this, a complete U-turn. When I say a complete U-turn, somebody promised something and not living up to that something that they promised. So there is a kind of a clash. There's a kind of a misunderstanding. There is a kind of a gap, and the gap is widening. And then we go back to the topic of this particular broadcast, which is the polarization of a country, of a country, and a people continues unabated. It's not stopping. Now, when we speak, when we go out in public and hold our normal arguments, our discussions, our debates, it's unbelievable that this issue has become me and you, them and us. That's how dangerous it is. In the history of mankind, all these wars that we've seen, uprising, this is how it starts. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but something definitely needs to be done where we cannot see ourselves as them and us. It's against another. Why don't we look at substance? Put emotions aside. Let's look at substance. What is being said? Is this something that can be discussed within, some congenial way, within some degree of understanding, some mutuality? Because after all, it does happen us. It's about a country which is not divided between them and us. Certainly it is not, because if it were, then it won't stand. A house divided won't stand. Yes, there are political differences, but when the argument begins to hold strength and some are thriving in it, trying between them and us, it is scary and it needs to be checked. And the earlier, the better. Look, Pambulem, let's face it. All presidents think with things, see things. Most of them do get away with things, with murder, like in England, say with murder. So it's just some kind of a piece of literature. It's not actuality, it's sense. But it is equated with something so serious that the consequences for that should be so serious. Yet you get, again, back in England, they say slap the wrist. For something so serious, you get away with it, with doing it. Think as such. So let's face it. The former president, Ernest Bai Koroma, is rich. Absolutely, he is. Different bots about it. And I can therefore sit here today and pontificate, say without reservation that he will never, ever be hungry again. The same can be said, no matter below. the current president, is amassing a fortune. We can say that again without hesitation, that he is indeed amassing a fortune because he's doing what all presidents do, trying to secure a future. And therefore, I can sit here and pontificate and say without doubt, without if and but, that Julius Maada Bio will never be another Valentine Strasser. So yesterday was Ernest by Koroma. Today certainly is Julius Maada Bio, the current president of the state. We also ask a profound question, which will these people, these two, ever face justice, even in the after? Will one X, that is continuing? Some people will ask, why did you ask the question? Or why did you have to pair the two? Because at one point was, what's his name? Ernest by Koroma. At another point, okay, even though he's current, but absolutely he's not a monarch, neither a king. So at some point he's going to go, which is the current president, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio. He will have to go, Fambolem, at some point. So therefore, we are doing this contrast, this comparison, okay, between him and the other president, because after he will have left office, okay, there will be charges. Even when he's in office, there have been allegations, some of them very colorful, some of them dumb and unfounded, simply because you want to throw mud on the wall. But some of them do have some merits. They were made prior to him becoming president, and those claims are being made today as we speak. So Fambulem, yes. So this two will never be broke. And the idea that we keep hearing in the news, and this has been running for almost 2 years, that the Corruption Commission, headed by Francis Ben Kaifala, at some point was seeking to arrest the president, or was the ex-president was a person of interest to his commission, sent shockwaves to millions of people who adored him, the ex-president Ernest Bai Koroma, whilst others thought that justice must be meted out. Because if there are accusations and allegations, then obviously they have to be answered, because the constitution around or configuration of the Anti-Corruption Commission was basically to look into issues of this nature, in which those who happen or look like they are beyond the reach of justice can be reached. But the issue here is that I want to bring to your attention is the question again, will these two ever face justice? Because if Ernest Bai Koroma was to be humiliated, as was started, just mentioning his name alone and inviting him down as an ordinary citizen to the confines of people, that when his name was mentioned in the past, he trembled, but now he will sit almost like an ordinary man before them and being interrogated, did send shock waves. The question is, will retired brigadier, current president Julius Maada Bio, want to see himself in such a situation after he will have become history in terms of the presidency? And the answer is absolutely no. This is why I asked the question, will he pursue or continue to pursue Ernest Bai Koroma in cases of corruption? Or even what they're doing, is it real, or are they just playing on the minds and conscience of the people? Are they really living by their oath of office? That I do solemnly swear that the oath that I take today, raising your right hand or putting your hand on top of the Bible or the Quran, is a covenant with God, that what you swore upon here today is something that you will live by, because your conscience will always be your judge. But I'll tell you now something very interesting, Fambulem. This is not the case and will never be the case. Because while some of us take it seriously because there is a fear of God, that God, the all-powerful, the omniscient, he's everywhere. He sees everything. So some people carry themselves with that fear of God. And when they take that oath of office, this is that fear that drives them, that have made a promise, a covenant with God, and have to live by it. Like what happened in the United States recently in the impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States of America. In the Senate, we knew that he was not going to be indicted, not going to be found guilty, although he is impeached forever. Why? Because senators in that great country had already made up their minds and was just waiting for the case to come so they can kick it out as soon as possible. Some of them said it, that they were not going to be impartial. But when you take because you are meant to be impartial. You don't have friends in category. It's your conscience. It's your covenant with God. That's what you're talking about. This is what carries you. That's why you swear this oath that I, Prince Emil Cromer, will, upon taking office, support, protect the integrity of this country and the people and the X and the Y. I will be I will have access to justice, powerful, the affluent, but for everybody, including the ordinary citizens. But of course, it's a difficult choice to make. And I say this again in terms of those that are working within the confines, what they want to do for many reasons. Pardon me, for many reasons. For many reasons. The reason why I say this, or what I'm trying to say is, you've got some people within government. Not everybody accepts the state, what is happening, the situation, the state of the country or the government. Not everybody, even though they're working within. We've seen a similar thing in this United States. Some people are coming out now. But the choice or the urge for itself, okay? How do you put food on the table for you and your family? How do you put a roof over your head for you and your family? This is the driving force above everything else. And that's where there's supposed to be a law to protect people of such nature. That's why in the United States, they've got something called some kind of law for whistleblowers. So if you blow the whistle, you will be protected. But unfortunately, we don't have that. So people have to make a strong choice between singing, in this case, talking, or keeping quiet and to bear heavily a burden on your, but you cannot say it for fear of losing your job, and keeping quiet and continue with your job. This is the end of this program because we have to go to work and schools and the rest of it tomorrow. But we go back to the issue of swearing an oath. So understanding about swear an oath, okay, before God and man. Such an exercise bears a heavy consequence when you don't carry out what you promise to do. Remember, your hand is on top of a Bible. The Bible or the Quran personifies God Almighty and your discipline. But the exercise is seemingly look like a routine. And you have to ask whether these people have a fear for God, of God. Do they? Because we can clearly say as well, if they don't live up to these obligations, these things that they said that they will do, then obviously there's no fear of God. They're just waiting to carry out the exercise. It's now a futile or fruitless exercise. We see parliamentarians do it. We see the the current head of the parliament in Sierra Leone, under the circumstances that he was selected stroke elected to become the Speaker of the House. The circumstances. This is a clear-cut example of how you will carry yourself, how you will make a judgment based on this broadcast, especially on the issue of oath swearing before God and man as a public official. The calling is yours to make. As usual, we are trying to henceforth lay the case before you, the people, and you, the people, will make that decision. Ladies and gentlemen, when you ignore and disregard your oath of office, okay, I repeat, when you disregard your oath of office, especially because there is a demand. As per the oath of office, there's a demand. You promise, these are the promises that you make, that I will not be partisan or for any other selfish reasons. You are not willing to compromise your conscience, neither your integrity. These are the elements, these are the values, these are the embodiment of the process of oath taking, okay? You are not going to compromise your conscience, neither your integrity. We actually need to look at the word conscience because, again, this is important. It's a bit of a lecture and teaching and a broadcast. These words, there are key words in this broadcast tonight that needs to be correlated to understand exactly the oath of office, what it carries, what it bears, that heavy burden, that consequence upon one's conscience. Because when you speak, even though you might be swearing in front of some elected official, like probably the Chief Justice, because that's the routine path, because they have to conduct the exercise. But it is what you're doing, what's going through the mind, what that process is all about. You don't have to betray God. And once you break that promise, you have betrayed God. What I mean is, if you don't carry out what you promised to do in that oath taking, then it's obvious, Fambulem, that you don't betray Papa God Almighty. And this is not supposed to be the case. Unfortunately, this is what the case turns out to be. Ladies and gentlemen, the oath of office is quite significant and should not be taken as some form of joke. It should not be taken as some step into a position of influence and enriching yourself. And it's unfortunate but real that some people do think that this is the way that they will go, long before even taking the oath. So the oath then become an exercise. But you have to fear the wrath of God. Because if you think that it doesn't work or God is not there, He's always there watching over you, watching over us, listening to what you're saying. Okay? My concern is always going to be my concern. From this hence comes my my broadcast. I speak from my conscience. I am a man of conscience. I try not to be a conflicted individual, and I like to be a people's person. So, Fambulem, we really get to pay attention to all of these things then when they happen now this world usai with the in terms of waiting we don't broadcast. When you swear an oath before God, you promise that you will carry the burden of whatever undertaking you're about to undertake. In this regard, okay, with that oath of office, we demand you not for be either partisan nor for any other selfish reason, but when you do so, you get for remember, say, You betray your country. You betray, first of all, God. You betray your country. You betray you company them, your compatriots. You betray the nation, the state. So you betray God, you betray your country, and you betray your own very conscience. This is my final line, and this is quite important, Fambulem. You see, like I say, there's something where they drive me, because me a person of conviction. Me concern, just like George Orwell, as I've been a reader, I just see that me and him get quite a lot in common. Okay, I've been reading Orwell for quite a while. Since the 1980s, I've been reading George Orwell, like Animal Farm and other writings of his. But it's lately, as I mature, that I begin to understand what some of his writings then represent, why he wrote what he wrote, what he been trying to say. These were messages then, sounds almost proverbial. My concern is about the social improvement that the coach George Orwell in my own making, in my own liking. My concern is about the social improvement of, this is mine, our people. And in this regard, I can tell you and say, this nine, they drive me crusade and not politics. It's about the people and not politics. It's about the well-being of the masses and not politics. But because everything is politicized, people always will see these things from a prism, from a lens of politics. In this light, I want to say thank you very much to you all for listening. Today, the 18th of February, 2020. And I've been your host and presenter, Prince Emil Krumah. Keep watching, because we get many programs coming on, probably even tomorrow. But we definitely know that on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there are going to be 3 programs. One will be on the mismanagement of our youth. We've agreed on the topic, how our youths have been mismanaged, corruption at a higher level, where we will bring 2 or 3 new things into the domain. And the last one, we will disclose later. But keep an eye out on the bulletin. On this note, I want to say good night to everybody for listening. And please share the video, make it go wide, and let people themselves have a look, other people and have a look at this video, and let them make up their minds themselves. At this point now, I will left one again with Sekuba Fatako. This one is called Nene. Again, these are fond memories of the time that I spent in Guinea. Thank you very much for listening, and good night. Nene, Okay, and that brings us effectively to the end of tonight's broadcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Some of you are just tuning in now to watch the video in retrospect. Please don't share. And again, until this weekend, we are fully loaded with stuff that we're going to be coming with, materials of value. Thank you very much. Good night. God bless.